Okay, this is skill set 7. This is all about trigonometry. So trigonometry is with, you've got right angle triangles, so very similar to Pythagoras, but trigonometry involves angles as well. So it's very important that you label the correct sides with trigonometry. So your diagonal is always your hypotenuse, but your opposite and adjacent can change depending on where your angle is. So if this is where your angle is, opposite to your angle is your opposite. Next to your angle is your adjacent. However, if your angle is at the top, your opposite and adjacent would then swap over. Okay, so if you've got, you will have two lengths involved. Sometimes you'll have two lengths, sometimes you'll have one length and you'll need to find the other length. So it always involves two, so it's really important that you label those two sides. And if it's O and H, that means you've got so. So O and H would mean you're using the sign. You would have sine of x is opposite over hypotenuse. If those two sides are A and H, that means you've got cos. So you've got ka, so, ka, toa. So you've got ka, you've got cos of the angle is A over H. If you've got O and A, so if you've just got the opposite and adjacent, you don't have the hypotenuse, you can use toa. So you've got tan of x is O over A. So to find a side, you would just label the sides. You would write down SOHCAHTOA. You cross off the ones you know and the ones you want. Use the one with the 2 crossed off, and then you're going to write the ratio sub in and evaluate. So for example, if we've got this one, we've got the 2 that we want. So I would personally label, you can either label all the sides, or I will probably just be labeling the 2. So you've got here O, A and H. So O is opposite your angle. So you don't need A at all. So you're going to cross off O and H in all of them. So O and H, that means you're using so because you've crossed off 2. So you know sine of the angle is O over A because so O over A. So X is 40 degrees, that's your angle. O we don't have, so you can change that to a question mark. You can keep it as O, whatever you want. But you do have H, which is on the bottom. Now the rule, and don't forget to close your brackets when you're putting sine in your calculator, but if you've always put your number first, you won't have that problem. So I would normally put this one first. So the rule is if you're trying to find the thing at the top, so if you need the top, you're going to times. So you're going to do 8 times sine of 40. If they were the other way around, so if you're actually finding your hypotenuse, which I will do an example for, is the next example is like that. So for example, we've got toa. We've know tan of the angle 30 is O over A because toa. But we need the thing on the bottom. So if you need the top, you times in. If you're on the bottom, you're going to divide. And if you always put your number first, then it'll be easier because you can't do tan of 30 divided by 7, but it needs to be 7 divided by tan of 30, okay? If you're finding an angle, you need to shift. So if you're finding an angle, you need to shift. So exactly the same thing, but this time you don't have the x. So in this case, we've got cos, because ka is A over H. So to find that angle, you're just going to press shift cos of 5 over 8. You don't have to work out 5 over 8 if you don't want to. You can keep it in your calculator, but you're just going to press shift cos of 5 over 8. So make sure it comes up with a little to the -1. So it'll have cos -1 of 5 over 8. So it should look like that as an S. So to the -1. Okay, so you're shifting if you're finding an angle. If you need to find the top, you're times in. And if you're finding the bottom, you're going to divide. So let's have a go at some. I'm only going to label 2 to help us out. So I'm just going to put a big SOHCAHTOA at the top. Okay, so SOHCAHTOA. So in this triangle, I've got the 35 degrees as the angle. That 6 is your hypotenuse. And the question mark is opposite the angle. So opposite the angle, so that's going to be O. So you can write them all down. So we could write SOHCAHTOA. And we're going to cross off the things we've got. So we've got O, we've got H, we've got H, we've got O. So the ones I've crossed off 2 on is my so. So I know sine of the angle, x or theta, or whatever you're calling it, I'm going to call it x because the examples did, is O over H. So O I don't have, so I'm going to keep that as O. Over H, which is 6. So sine of the angle x is O over H. We have x. Let me start again. Oh, I don't know what happened then. So we know sine of the angle x is going to be O over H. So now we can substitute what we do have in. So we've got sine of 35. We don't have O, but we've got H is 6. Now we're trying to find the thing at the top, so we're going to times. So to find our opposite, we're going to do 6 times sine of 35 to get our opposite, which should give us 3.4 centimetres. Okay, right, next one. We're going to label the two sides we have. So 45, our 5 is our hypotenuse. Opposite our 45 is that question mark. So we've got O and H again. So hopefully you will get used to not writing it all down. But if we write so, car, toa, we can see O and H is both crossed off in so we know sine of the angle X is O over H. In this case again, we've got our angle, which is 45. We don't have O, but we do have our H is 5. We're finding the thing at the top, so we're going to times. So we're going to do 5 times sine of 45 to give us our opposite, which is 3.5 centimetres. So very similar triangles, but our angle moved, but we were still using sine. Let's have a look what we're using for our next one. So we've got our angle 45. Our 6 is our opposite the angle. Our question mark is our hypotenuse. So O and H. So if you write so, car, toa, we've got O, H, H, O. So we know it's the so. So we've got sine of the angle X is so O first over H. So we've got the angle. We've got sine of 45. We've got O this time is 6, but we don't have H. Now, when we're trying to find the thing on top, we times. When we're not, to find the thing on bottom, we're going to divide. So we're going to do 6 divided by sine of 45 to get our H. And we should get 10.5 centimetres to get our hypotenuse. So these next ones, I'm not going to write SOHCAHTOA at the very beginning of every one this time. Okay, so hopefully you get the hang of doing this. So we've got 65. 10 is our opposite. And the question mark is next to it, so it's OA. So that's going to be TOA. So we know tan of the angle X is O over A. So tan of the angle, which is 65, is going to be O, which we have is 10, over A, which we don't have. So the thing we're trying to find is on the bottom, so we're going to divide. So we're going to do 10 divided by tan of 65. To give us our A, so we should get, if we just put all that in our calculator, don't forget to put brackets around that 65 and close our brackets, we should get 4.7 centimetres as our adjacent length. Right, next one, we've got our 38 is our angle. The question mark is your longest length, is that diagonal opposite the right angle, so it's our hypotenuse. The 8 centimetres is next to the angle, so that's adjacent. So we've got A and H, so if you think about SOHCAHTOA, it's going to be ka, so it's going to be cos of the angle X is going to be A, which we have, over our hypotenuse. So we've got cos of 38 is 8 over our hypotenuse. The thing we're trying to find is on the bottom, so we're going to divide. So we're going to do 8 divided by cos of 36. We put all that in our calculator, don't forget those brackets. We get 10.2 centimetres for our hypotenuse. Right, next one, we don't have an angle, but we've got those two sides. So let's label those two sides. Our 8 is our hypotenuse, and the question mark is opposite that 5 centimetres, so that's going to be our O. So we've got O and H, that means it's going to be SOA. So we've got sine of the angle X, which we don't have, is O over H. So sine of X is going to be O, which is 5, over our H, which is 8. This time, when we're finding an angle, we need to shift. So we're going to press shift sine, and it's going to come up as sine to the minus 1 in your calculator of whatever 5 over 8 is. And when we press shift sine of 5 over 8, we get 38.7 degrees. So that is an angle, so don't forget it's a degrees, not a centimetres. Right, let's have a look. Our next one, hopefully it's getting repetitive now, so you hopefully are flying through these. So we need an angle again. Our 11 is our hypotenuse because it's our longest side. The 7 is next to it, so that is our adjacent. So we've got A and H. So that is ka. So we've got cos of the angle X is A over H. So it's because it's ka. So SOHCAHTOA is A over H. Then we need to substitute in. So we've got cos of the angle x. A is 7, we've labelled, and h is 11 that we've labelled. Then to find our angle, we're going to shift. So if you're finding an angle, you shift of whatever 7 over 11 is. And when you put that in your calculator, you get 50.5 degrees. Next one, we're also finding an angle. So we've got our hypotenuse, there is our 7, because it is the longest side, opposite the diagonal, opposite the right angle is the diagonal. The 5 is next to the angle. Adjacent means next to, okay? So if you're adjacent to someone, you are next to someone. So A and H is cos again. So we've got cos of the angle x is A over H because car. So cos of the angle x is going to be A, which is 5 over our H, which is 7. When we're finding an angle, we shift. So you're going to press shift cos. So it comes up as cos to the minus 1 of whatever 5 over 7 is. You can work that out beforehand. You can put in a fraction. It's up to you. It'll give you the same answer as 44.4 degrees. Okay, next one. So we're finding an angle again. So we know we need to shift at the end. But let's first work out if we've got so, car, or toa. So we've got that hypotenuse. So we know it's not toa. And we've got the angle next to it. So it's going to be car again. Got a lot of causes. So we've got cos of the angle x is A over H. So we've got cos of the angle x is 9 over 13. Write it out because you'll get the hang of it then. You'll remember that cos is A over H. Then to get our x, we're going to do cos to the minus 1, which is shift cos of 9 over 13, which is 46.2 degrees. Okay, let's have a look at our next ones. So this is task 24. Still all about trigonometry. So we've got this angle, it's the top angle, I'm assuming it's 32. Our 8 is our hypotenuse because it is the diagonal, it is the longest side, it is opposite the right angle, so it is our hypotenuse. The question mark is next to our angle, so it is adjacent to our angle. So we know cos of the angle x, we've got a lot of causes, is A over H, so we got car. So we know cos of the angle 32 is A, which we don't have, so we're going to leave it as A, over our hypotenuse, which is 8. So the thing we're trying to find is up top, and when the thing we're trying to find is up top, we times. So we're going to do 8 times cos of 32 to get our adjacent. So when we do on our calculator, 8 times cos of 32, there's no shift in, it's just cos of 32. Make sure it's brackets, we get 6.8, and that is in centimetres because it is a length. Next one, we've got an angle, is 45. We've got our hypotenuse is 8, that's the diagonal, it's opposite our right angle. The side next to it is the adjacent because it's next to, so we've got cos again of A over H. So we've got cos of the angle 45, should be amazing at cos by now, is the adjacent, which we don't have, over our hypotenuse, which is 8. Oh, I thought it was going to be the same as the last one, but the angle's different, isn't it? So the thing we're trying to find is up top, so we're going to times, so we're doing 8 times cos of 45, gives our adjacent, which is 5.7 centimetres to get our angle, to get our length A. Next one, we've got 45. We've got our hypotenuse, which is 6 centimetres. Haven't got the length next to it, so that's adjacent. Shock, it is cos again. I'm hoping we got some other non-causes later on. So we've got cos of the angle x is going to be A over H. So we've got cos of the angle 45 is going to be your adjacent, which we don't have, over our hypotenuse, which we do have, is 6. Now these three, the first three, you should be fine at because they're very similar. So the thing we're trying to find is at top, so we're going to times. It's very similar, just different numbers. This is what math is all about. When you come to your exam, it's going to look like this, just with different numbers. So we've got 6 times cos of 45 to give us 4.2 centimetres to give us our adjacent. Right, next one. We've got our angle 65. We've got that hypotenuse, which we need. We haven't got that. But this time we've got our opposite. We haven't got cos. So is our first one. So we've got sine of our angle x. So is O over H. So car toa. So we've got sine of the angle, which we have, 65, is our opposites, which we have, is 10 over hypotenuse, which we don't have. So the thing we're trying to find is on the bottom, so we're going to divide. So we're going to do 10 divided by sine of 65 to give us our hypotenuse. Put that in our calculator, don't forget our brackets. We've got 11.03 centimetres for our hypotenuse. Next one, we've got 38 is our degrees. We've got the length opposite it is 8, so that's opposite it. The length next to it is our adjacent. So we've got O and A. O and A is TOA, so we've got so, car, TOA. So we've got tan of the angle 38 is going to be your opposite. Oh, what am I doing now? So I wrote X there, I know, I'm just jumping now. X over tan of 38 is going to be your opposite 8 over your adjacent A. What have I missed? I've missed out my step. I've got tan of X is O over A. So we've got the thing we're trying to find. Where's my pen? The thing we're trying to find is on the bottom. So we're going to divide. So we're going to do 8 divided by tan of 38 to give us our adjacent. I rushed then and got confused. We got 6.3 centimetres for our adjacent. I wasn't using cos, I was uncomfortable. Next one's cos though. Right, next one. So we've got the hypotenuse and we've got our adjacent, so it's our cos. But we're trying to find our angle this time. So we know cos of the angle x is A over h. So we're trying to find an angle, so we don't have cos of the x. But we know A is 5 and we know H is 7. So to find our X, when we're finding an angle, what do? We shift. So we do cos to the -1 of 5 over 7. So put that in your calculator and you get 44.4 degrees. Last three, we've got our angle we're trying to find in this one. We've got the hypotenuse is the 11 because that is your longest side, is your diagonal, is opposite your right angle. This 8 is opposite the angle, so it's opposite. So that is so. So we know sine of the angle x is O over h because SOA. So we don't have the angle, so sine of x is O, which is 8 over our hypotenuse, which is 11. So to find our angle, we are going to shift. So we're going to do shift sine, so it makes it sine to -1, over 8 over 11. And we should get 46.7 degrees. Next one, we've got our angle we're trying to find. This 12 is our hypotenuse. The 7 is next to it, so it's our adjacent. So we've got cos of the angle x. So it's car, so it's A over h. So cos of the angle, which we don't have, we're trying to find is A, which is 7, over our 12. So to find our angle, we're going to shift cos of 7 over 12 to give us 54.3 degrees. And the last one, we've got our angle, we've got the opposite, we've got the adjacent. So OA is tan. I feel like we haven't done many tans. We've got tan of the angle x is O over A because TOA. We don't have our angle, so we've got tan of the angle x. O first 13 over 9. It doesn't matter that top number is bigger. Tan is a very weird graph, so it does go up above 1. So we've got x. To find our value of x, we've got shift tan of whatever 13 over 9 is, and we get the angle 55.4